Pat, in the last couple of days since the Special Congress was at GAA and the Tier 2 was introduced, plenty of people have talked about the growing disconnect between the GAA and its members around the country. You were in at it down in Pairc Ui Chaoimh. Is that how it felt, or what was the day like?
Yeah, well, I would have felt it. I didn't have to go to the Special Congress on Saturday to join the dots in that respect. It was what I expected. Like I think from most people and certainly most players that I've spoken to, the Tier 2 thing would be they'd be against that particular version of it. Some players are totally against any sort of Tier 2. Some players want a certain type of Tier 2, and anyone I spoke to absolutely didn't want the Tier 2 that's now been voted in. So you'd wonder, how does it get to a stage where 75% of delegates on the floor of Special Congress vote in favour of it? Special Congress is different to your annual Congress in that the county delegations and the overseas delegations are cut, but Central Council's delegation remains intact. This is a cost-saving measure. This is a Central Council motion, yet Central Council's voting power on Saturday remained fully intact, whereas that of the counties was diminished.
That sounds to me now that if the GAA want to get something through, this is a very handy way to ram it through because they don't have counties getting in the way to the same degree.
Yeah, well, if it's a Central Council motion, it's unlikely that a large raft of Central Council delegates are going to vote against it, and then you're cutting down the opportunity of I suppose opposition from the floor by obviously having the delegates. That's a kind of strange form of democracy. Now, to be fair, it probably would have got through anyway because the calibre of delegate, your average Congress delegate, for me, tends to be out of touch with the GAA people on the ground.
How can you draw that sort of conclusion?
Well, I think because I'm a member of the GAA, I'm an active member of the GAA. I work as a GAA reporter, so I think I talk to a broad cross section of GAA people, and yet quite often the opinions of those people is not reflected in how Congress votes. Even the quality of the debate for the Tier 2 was there were some excellent speakers against it. Now I'm against it myself, so maybe that's a bit of bias on my part. But Ciarán McCavanagh from Antrim spoke really well, as did Sean Campion from Carlow. There were other contributions, like I think it was actually proposed by a Sligo delegate. The motion was proposed by a Sligo delegate.
Wicklow were on board.
Wicklow were on board, Leitrim as well. But just making the point, like I did a piece with Neil Ewing. He was one of 4 players that I interviewed about the Tier 2 a number of weeks ago.
From Sligo?
Neil Ewing of Sligo, and certainly he's strongly against this motion. He gave me the impression that a lot of his teammates were as well. So how do you arrive at a situation where perhaps, from what I can see, a lot, if not, I'd imagine the majority of the Sligo panel are against it, yet they have their delegate proposal on the floor of Congress. There's a disconnect straight away. Some of the things that were brought up in relation to the pros and cons, or the pros of the Tier 2 would leave you scratching your head. Like Sean Kelly, the former GAA president, who in fairness was a really progressive GAA president, made a statement that every player will be able to say that there'll be 30 more players every year now that will be able to say they have an All-Ireland medal. Well, do they really? Are the Laois lads going around this year saying they have an All-Ireland medal because they won the Joe McDonagh? I wouldn't have thought so.
Well, the flip side to that is, having spoken with Laois journalists this year, they were saying after the Joe McDonagh final that there were kids everywhere going around in Laois finals because, there was a hullabaloo and they just knew that their team was in a final. So, I mean, I do actually agree with you in broad terms about a lot of what you're saying, but that would be the counterpoint.
Yeah, I accept that, but then with this proposal, and I'm not, but I think what worked with the hurling structure, and Laois are an outstanding example of it, is that they won their competition and then they got a shot at playing in the higher tier in the same year. And I think that's what needs to happen if Tier 2 in football is going to be a success. And even with the other motions that were down for decision at Congress on Saturday, there was maybe half an hour-ish of debate on the Tier 2, and then you had the 3 motions on the playing rules. And there was maybe a minute or so of debate on each one. And they were
so that was the kick out, that was the attacking mark, and the other one was the sin bin.
Yeah, and these are fundamental. Well, maybe not fundamental. The sin bin and the kick out probably isn't a fundamental change in the game, but I think the mark is, or could potentially be. Yeah. And yet it was just very quickly discussed. A couple of speakers vote on it, bang, it's true, and it's in the game of Gaelic football. indefinitely now from 4 weeks' time. And like that's kind of, it was almost as if, yeah, we're after debating the tier 2 motion. That's as much time as we're prepared to give. Just hurry up so we can vote on the rest of them and get the hell out of here. Which I don't think is good enough. And like, we're told that Congress is democratic and all that sort of thing. And if you look at it in theory, in terms of the trail from your club delegate to your county board delegate to your Congress delegate, your provincial delegates and all that, it appears to be, but something is lost in translation along the way, and we hear so much about the disconnect in the GAA, and that disconnect from top to bottom manifests itself more on the floor of Congress than anywhere else.
It just sounds like, you often hear the cliche about it's just a load of old fogies up at the top of the room, and the other thing is, it just sounded like you were in there pulling your hair out.
Yeah, there is a generational gap there, which will always be there to a certain extent from with GAA administrators, and that's the way it has to be, I suppose, because you know, when you're in your 20s and 30s and maybe 40s even, you're concentrating on playing the game or maybe coaching, but that doesn't give them an excuse or an out to be so ill-informed. I'm not saying they're all ill-informed, but you know, there is an element of some of the, when it comes to some of the contributions, that you're just wondering what circles are they moving in. Certainly not the same circles that I move in the GAA.
Thanks very much, Pat.
You're very welcome.